I assume you're supposed to be the plague or death?
Death.
Death? So what are you trying to tell us? I'm not hostile. I'm just curious what you're out here for.
Offering perspective.
Okay, lay it on me.
That large groups of gatherings such as this are prone to trigger clusters of the virus.
Okay.
Which could inevitably lead to more people dying.
All right. I'll keep my distance. Don't worry. I'm not one of the unreasonable ones. I know there are some out here that are deemed unreasonable. How do you address the fact that even in states that and even nations that aren't taking some of the draconian measures that are being taken, say in Minnesota or Michigan and Ohio and Kentucky, they're not seeing outrageously high infections and deaths? How would you address that? I'm Todd, by the way.
Yeah, so the concern with any numbers that are being produced right now is that we don't have enough tests in order to actually get accurate numbers. And so we had cases like Oregon in the beginning was sort of labeled as this cluster, when reality was that it was just a lot of people in that area had access to testing. Right. So at that point and continuing up until now, I don't think that the data that we're getting from the CDC is accurate enough to tell us. You and I would agree that there are some inaccuracy issues with the CDC and the WHO and other reports. Do you think that it's possible, and I don't know how old you are, young lady. I know you're younger than I am. But do you think it's possible to take reasonable precautions without instituting economically damaging policies and edicts that are not just hurting the economy, but are actually hurting people? Because as we're seeing, many states, many regions, or particular regions within states are seeing an uptick in suicide from the despondency over having lost jobs and being told you're not going back to work. And I understand that problem. Trust and believe I understand and believe that is 100% a serious problem. Yep. I think that... Thank you for engaging civilly, by the way. Yeah, I think that the problem, that the ultimate solution to that problem would be better leadership. Ultimately, what people care about as human beings isn't these paper dollars. It's that we feel like we're contributing to society. Absolutely. And I think if we had leaders that were giving people avenues to do that, to still do that in ways that aren't actively sort of creating things that were worse, I think that can happen. So you think there is a place for balance? Yes, absolutely. Right. So you've got one side of the arguments, like everybody in your houses, nobody comes out. If you come out of your house and they catch you, you need to be, and I've heard these arguments, if you get caught in public, huh? Is it Halloween? Oh, it looks like Halloween. No, we're trying to have a reasonable conversation. Sorry. Like I said, not all of us are unreasonable. Both sides sometimes just. Where was I? Finding balance. So there's one side that's like, don't come out of your house for any reason, and it needs to be a law, and if you get caught out of your house or somebody turns you in, you need to be locked up, and because you're a danger to society. And then you've got the other side that's like, who cares, don't take any precautions, and even if you're a herd immunity type person, and I am to some degree, they're way over there going, nobody should be forced, or not forced, but nobody should be quarantining. Everybody should be going about their regular. Everybody should be. I think I know where you're going for, and my answer is that I'm a
utopia person, and so in an ideal world, we'd have leaders that would educate us on why we should do these policies, and it wouldn't have to be a draconian law.
Every single time I try to talk to somebody, there's always... so...
Does that make sense?
No, I guess my question would be is, do you think that, and I appreciate the utopian perspective, while I say this kindly, I think it's a little bit of a pie in the sky perspective when you talk about governing authorities having that kind of perspective, having that kind of ability to educate us, because over and over and over again in the history of the world, not just the United States, but in the history of the world, governing authorities have never done a good job of educating the people to be able to make decisions that are good for them independently. It's either mass chaos or, for lack of better terminology, mass incarceration, in the sense of, even though you may not be in a prison, you're still confined. And I come from, maybe, I don't know what your worldview is or your philosophical perspective is, but I come from a very traditional, conservative Christian perspective. And the reason that I say that about government and elected officials or ruling authorities or whatnot is that they're sinful human beings like everybody else. And so they're going to, very often, whether we like it or not, they're going to make decisions that benefit them, no matter who gets hurt. You know that he's not even in the house right now, right?
Doesn't.
It's coming from a guy who was preaching at him earlier, and I even said, I know you're not in there. So the human condition is just going to tend towards chaos.
100%.
And so you're never going to get utopian out of a human condition that tends towards chaos, unless you bring a modifying worldview into that. And I'm not in particular at this very moment in time strictly advocating for Christianity. I'm just saying that I don't want to scream at people. You're just not going to get that kind of legitimate positive influence from leaders, because they're just like everybody else. They're going to make selfish decisions, and it might benefit a few people, but it's never going to benefit everyone.
I think the best my argument that we've currently seen of that type of society existing would be Salvatore Aldore's Chile, what was it, 69 to 73, I want to say.
But then look what happened.
The U.S. invaded and fucked it up.
Well, but
they hired a bunch of mercenaries because they thought it was communism and decided to go, fuck y'all. But
there again, even, and I'm not going to dispute the United States. I don't believe in interventionism at all. I'm not an interventionist. I personally, unless a country approaches us, and like you look at World War II and situations like that, there is a time for interventionism at the world's behest, because it does benefit the world. So I'm not, if a country chooses to go communist, let them go. If you're against communism, on a personal level, sooner or later that's going to backfire on them if you really believe what you say you believe about socialism and communism. But it's the same thing with, true democracy. We're like, people refer to the United States as a democracy. Well, we're not. We're technically not. We're supposed to be a constitutional republic, but where are we at? We run more like a democracy. And how do democracies work?
But
mob rule.
So mutually exclusive. You can be a republic that is a
you can be a democratic republic, but there's a difference between a democratic republic and a constitutional republic. And we've shifted more towards a democratic republic and less as a constitutional republic. And when that happens, in a democracy, mob rules. Might makes right, no matter which side it is. For a while it might be the left, and then after a while it might be the right. And so the human condition almost always tends towards
doing what feels best for itself, especially when I have the power to make that happen. And so why I'm talking to you is I wanted you to know that, like I said, some of us are reasonable, and two, just to get your thoughts on if it's whether or not it's possible for there to be a balance where, I'll admit there are some people who probably, if they weren't told to social distance or physical distance, whatever terminology, would probably still, and we've seen it even with them being told, they're still going to the beaches and they're still, look at the rash of kids that went, even though they were told not to go out on spring break, they did. And then they flew all over the country taking it and spread it. Now, fortunately, the numbers aren't as bad as they were forecasted to be. And I want to make sure that you hear me saying this. Every death is tragic. Every death. But like we agreed, even those deaths that are brought about by despair and suicide because a person's lost everything. And those all matter. So I just wanted to come in and engage with you. And
I appreciate that.
like I said, my name's Todd. I completely get it if you don't want to give me your name. Totally understand. Interest of full disclosure, because you're the only person that's been willing to engage that comes from a different perspective, I will probably post this on my YouTube channel.
That's fine.
If you're interested in seeing it, it's the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. I've got about 18 other interviews ahead of yours, so it'll probably probably be like 8 days from now.
Yep.
So if you're interested in looking it up. And so the one thing that I'm going to ask before I leave is, if you had Governor Walz's ear right now, and you also had the ear of the people who organized a day like today, first, what would you say to Governor Walz about what you agree with and what you disagree with? And what would you say to the organizers so that they understood where you were coming from? And as succinctly as possible, because I could tell you could probably talk circles around most people.
I haven't thought that much about what I would say to Waltz, just full disclosure. I think what I think he's doing well is trying to inform people about the seriousness of it, and what I think he could do further is trying to work more with our big corporations, especially like we have 3M, right? Mm-hmm. How is it possible that we have 3M and we don't have enough tests in this state? How is it possible that we have all of Medtronic, all of these corporations that do all this wonderful medical stuff all the time? Why aren't you doing more to shunt their resources to people that actually need it? People like my friends who are residents in hospitals here. Mm-hmm. My message to the organizers is that y'all...
Remember, civil. No cursing. Now I've challenged you. Civil and no cursing. You could do it. I trust you've got this in you.
Yeah, I do. Truthfully, I understand how much it sucks not to feel like you have power, and I understand that this is a reaction to that, and that is a valid human reason. Unfortunately, things like viruses don't care about those, and ultimately, the virus doesn't care whether or not you're out here for a good reason, whether or not you are here for a religious reason or a bad reason. If you're congregating in a big group, that is really concerning. And if I were organizing any sort of protest right now, I would make sure that the orders that I had for people to stay in their cars were followed.
So one follow-up question, then I'll get out of your way. Do you believe that it's within the constitutional authority of elected officials to take away the Bill of Rights?
I will have to say that I'm not educated enough on that.
I appreciate that answer. I appreciate that answer. If you have been mistreated or maltreated or abused or received derogatory comments from anyone, I cannot apologize for them. I did not do it. But I did want you to know that I appreciate the fact that you're out here, even though your message might be a little different than the message of a lot of people that are out here. And even in our disagreement, I would lay down my life for you to be able to maintain your right to disagree.
I appreciate that.
So,
I appreciate you being civil and not mean or rude in any way.
Most people that walk by you probably had no idea what you were trying to. You were probably getting crap from both sides.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you because I have the
I like it.
same shirt on, and I'm like, I was trying to figure out her point.
So I'll let you two talk now. So
Is that the business?
no, it's not. But I'll let you guys work it out. Just be civil to her.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah. So thank you very much for your time. And seriously, if you want to look it up, the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, because you are going to be probably one of the fun videos. So thank you very much.
Yeah.